How you going, guys? And what we're going to be talking about today is how you can create a six-figure investment portfolio, giving you over $100,000 within 20 years, and it costing you nothing out of your own pocket. And that's only going to be comprised of 2 cash flow investing properties. All right, so what we're going to be today is talking about how cash flow properties work. Very quickly, going to go through a scenario with buying 2 cash flow investment properties, going to go through the holding costs of them, the costs for the mortgage, the rental income to receive. We're going to actually jump onto a quick calculator and show you when the mortgages are going to be paid off, just so you can see how the strategy actually works. This is only going to be a fairly quick video, so it's not going to be an overall detailed analysis based on personal situations, individual properties. It's going to give you an idea of how the strategy actually works. And this is fantastic, especially in rising interest rate markets, because you're always going to have a really strong, stable cash flow. All right, so let's jump into it. My name's Andrew Mitchell. I'm the founder of Mitchy Money, and we help people with complete the perfect retirement blueprint so they understand their figures and then they can implement those figures to reach their perfect retirement without using expensive financial advisors or planners to give them control that they can do it themselves. All right, so let's jump into it. And I haven't got anything fancy. I haven't used any sort of patent software or anything like that you don't have access to. Just a basic spreadsheet that I've just thrown a couple of multiplication formulas in there, like nothing really fancy at all, using an online info choice calculator. So I'm not using any of the software that costs money from us or anything like that. So this is anything that's accessible. So if you jump on here, and all I've done here is got 2 cash flow property example. We're going to use 4.5% interest rate. Look, that's higher, much higher than it is today. We know rates are on the rise. So this will give us a really good stable foundation. We're going to use around about 2.5% CPI rate. It's going to be a little bit higher, a little bit lower. If it's higher, it means that rental increases will be higher as well, but we're just going to use 2.5% as well. And 8% rental gross. A lot of people say that might be really high. It's absolutely not. If you're using cash flow strategy, you should be looking at 10 to 12% cash flow, depending on what you're looking at, whether or not you want to do some minor cosmetic renovations, improve your yield that way, whether or not you want to add an extra dwelling on the back end of the property, whether or not you want to do a couple of things to it. But we should be looking around about minimum of 8% gross. And just to show you quickly, is I just threw on here online, I just did a search for some of the areas that I look at. Is here we go, one for about 398,000. You can see it's 10.97%. And I'm not using just realestate.com for everything, but this is just an example. It might be a little bit run down. You might need to spend a little bit of money on it to do it up. I don't know, 10, 15, 20, 30 grand. We've got a couple here. Home Hill's just south of Ayr, so we want to have a quick look. Let's just see what this one is. Let's have a look. And we've got another one here. Let's just have a quick look at this one. Okay, is 8% return straight, and that's based on list price. So it goes to show you, look, there's a lot of other ones here as well. It just goes to show you 8% is really, really reasonable in a really strong regional solid town, giving you multi-units on one title, giving you a really good return. And as you can see here, a lot of these are under $500,000, which is where we're using for our amount. So $500,000 or around about is a very, very reasonable amount to be able to expect for a multi-unit dwelling cash flow property. If you can go higher, fantastic. As long as your rental yields are there, that's great. All right, so let's just have a look. We're having a look at $500,000 for a purchase price. Look, our cost, we're going to say, are around about 5% of our purchase price. Okay, based on Queensland stamp duty, we're probably sitting around 15 to 16,000 plus another $10,000 of costs. Probably a little bit overestimate, but I know some of the other states are a little bit higher. At 8% rental income, we're going to be getting $40,000 a year. And then the net, let's just say it's $6,000 worth of costs and bits and pieces involved in that as well. But one thing we need to understand is if we're holding this property, over here you'll see that I've got the 20 years, year 1 to year 20, and then 21 is obviously the start of year 21, which is the end of year 20, is we've got the price rises. Let's just say it's rising by 2.5% on average. So at the end, we're going to have an $820,000 property. And a lot of people going, oh, that's terrible capital growth. Yeah, you're right. If we're investing in a capital growth strategy, 2.5% keeping up with inflation isn't what we want. That's terrible. But at the end of the day, cash flow strategies rely on the income that you want to derive. It's different to a capital growth strategy. So if you're doing a capital growth strategy, you'd expect that to have be about 1.5 to 1.75 over that 20-year period. Rent will go up from 40 to 65,000, and then net with 34 to 55,000. Okay. So if we have a look here, we've got 34,000 income in year one. Let's have a look at what our repayments are, just so we can do it together. So we've got 525,000 as the actual amount. We've got a 30-year loan term, 4.5%. It's $2,660 a month. All right, so $2,660 a month is $31,920 a year. All right, so at $31,920 a year, it's only positive by $2,000 a year. That's not a lot. Okay, but that's only year one for one property. What we need to understand though is if we're looking at our rent, the rent CPI increases do go up. So we actually need to use, over the course of a 20-year strategy, we need to use the inflation adjusted rent, which is all it is the net rents with the increases over that 20 years. Again, 2.5% rent increases is a very low amount on average across. It mightn't go up for 1 year, it might go up by 10% the next, whatever it might be. And then we divide it by the number of years. So that gives us 43,425, which is basically what we've got here. We've got 43,000 rather than 34,000 because this is an average across the full 20 years. And then we just times it by 2 because we've got 2 properties, because we've got 1 property, 2 properties here, which means that our repayments are twice the amounts here, 63,000, which gives us a net surplus of per year on average across those 20 years. Obviously, as the surplus is going to be greater in year 15 than it is in number 1, but we've averaged it out, is $23,000. Okay, so it's a positive cash flow. So let's just take the fact that we've got to pay 30% tax, if that's our tax rate. So we're going to be net $16,000. So if we're net $16,000 and we divide that by 12, that means we can contribute, or this property is positively cash flowed as an average of $1,342. So $1,342 we can add is in extra payments. All right, but we need to increase the loan amount back to $1 million because we've got 2 properties. So as you can see here, we've got 2 properties at $500,000 plus the $25,000 cost. If we bought the 2 properties at the same time, I'm just using this as an example. So let's just say we bought 2 properties. We use the cash flow of those 2 properties to put back into the mortgage. And it doesn't matter if we split mortgage, separate, whatever. The overall mortgage is $1,050,000. So we're paying it off. And then we're obviously paying tax on the additional amount at 30%. I've just chosen that 30% amount. Look, if we did a little bit of work, we've got some depreciation that we conduct. All of those things are individual against the specific properties. 30%, you might be higher or lower. That's individual. We're not going into that. The properties itself, they might get better rental yields or slightly less. That's individual. But as long as you stick with the basis of the strategy, you can assess them individually. Interest rates are going to fluctuate. So this is, again, individual. The breaking down the inflation across the years, is it 100% accurate? No, but it's probably about 96, 97%. So again, this is about a strategy and showing you how it actually works. So if we're actually contributing the additional amount, $1,342, which is just coming from rental income, back into the mortgage, you can see here in year 20, we're going to have it completely paid off. And what are we actually getting for those properties? We're getting 43,000, or year 20, here we go. We're actually at year 20, we're getting $54,354 in year 20. So we use the 43, which is lower than the actual amount that we're getting because it's an average. But if we actually then, year 20, all the debts are paid off, we're actually getting $108,700. We've got to pay tax on that. Going to have to pay, that's taking consideration, that's already taking consideration rates, insurances, all those sorts of things are already factored in there, which is about $10,000 a property each, which you can see are already factored in there. But that gives you $100,000 of income a year within 20 years, and it hasn't cost you a cent out of your own pocket. Now, yes, to buy this first property or the first 2 properties, you're going to need to use equity. So if you don't own a property, then you're going to have to save up for a deposit. That is going to cost you some money, granted. You could buy 1 property if you didn't have enough equity for 2, and then as a strategy, you supplement the property by a second one, and then use the additional rental income from years 5 onwards, or buy 1, pay it off in 15 years, buy a second one, and then potentially have that paid off in the next 5 to 7 years using 2 cash flows. The strategy can be manipulated 1,000 different ways, but it shows you very clearly, if we have 2 cash flow properties giving us 8% rental yield with a 4.5% interest rate, with a 2.5% growth rate in rents, and property price, those sorts of things. It's going to be positively cash flowed, only a small amount to start with, but over time, as the rents go up, the mortgages gets reduced, the discrepancy and the surplus is going to increase. So as the average, or just shows you, it's going to be giving us $86,850 on average a year in income, $63,000 in costs, $23,000 positive, and then pay 30% in tax, $16,000 positive surplus, put that back into the mortgage, and it has it completely paid off in year 20. Now, if you wanted to contribute an extra $100, $200, $300, $500 a week, go for it. That's fine. But what I find is the fact that this is outside of super as well. So this is your own name. One of the biggest benefits that outside of super investing has is flexibility. You can access it whenever you want. You don't have to wait for it. So you could use this strategy, and it's a zero cost strategy, and then put additional money into your super fund if you wanted to. And then you've got super. Your super you can actually put into maybe some growth assets. And then you've got your capital growth strategy. You could take this, you could then take, if you had these investment properties, rather than paying it off, for example, and if you had a principal place of residence, you could then put the money into your principal place of residence to pay the principal place of residence debt off faster, and then contributed the money into this cash flow strategy for the investment debt. So then you can still maintain the investment debt and the deductions. So there's a lot of different ways that you can use it. You can use the surplus cash to invest into capital growth strategy. You can use the surplus cash to pay off non-deductible debt, the surplus cash to fast track the debt reduction into the investment itself, surplus cash to do whatever it was, start a side hustle, the business, whatever it might be. But as you can see, it can very clearly shows you that basically you can buy 2 cash flow properties, have them paid off within 20 years, giving you over 6 figures within retirement. This is the overall strategy that we go through with our cash flow investing course. We go through how to select locations, data-driven analysis for those locations. We then personalize it, how you can actually break it down and review it to your personal situation. You've got your personalized debt reduction calculator. So it goes into a lot of data-driven, because at the end of the day, if we drive it by data, make decisions by data, we take the emotion out of it, and you can get the best result. Look, hopefully that was helpful. I know there's a lot of people probably think this is one of those strategies that is unachievable for a lot of people, but the fact of the matter is it actually is enormously achievable. It's cost you nothing out of your own pocket. The properties, you can see there's many properties in really stable areas. Dubbo's gone up a little bit, but that's still a pretty good area. You've got Ayr, you've got the northern area there. You've got Strawn, you've got some places in Tasmania, you've got some outskirts of Adelaide, Melbourne. All these things are outside the capital cities. As long as you've got good stable employment, good stable population migration to the area, good stable rental stability in the area as well, it can actually work out to be in your favor, to be a really sound, strong strategy for yourself, your family, and again, giving you, there you go, $108,000 to $110,000 per year within 20 years. All right, thanks very much, guys, and here's to investing.